Hello. Tonight, you journey back thousands of years to a time before power belonged to single thrones or distant capitals. Have you ever wondered how an ancient civilization prospers for centuries without a supreme leader ruling over them? Tonight, as the modern world quietens down, you step into the lush, waterlogged cradle of ancient Southeast Asia to uncover the peaceful, decentralized rhythm of the early Lac Viet people. Imagine standing on a high alluvial ridge overlooking the vast, untouched delta of northern Vietnam thousands of years ago. The rising sea levels following the last ice age have finally stabilized, allowing the Red Ma and Sa rivers to quietly deposit rich silt across the wetlands. Mangrove forests stretch endlessly toward the horizon, intersected by winding, brackish swamps and calm lagoons. It feels like a prehistoric landscape, yet subtle signs of human presence begin to emerge through the thick morning mist. Interestingly enough, ancient silt moves with the deliberate patience of someone trying to select a movie on a streaming service with over 10,000 options. Geological core samples and paleoenvironmental studies reveal that these early settlers actively chose high elevation knolls to build their homes, safely above the unpredictable floodline. They carve out a peaceful existence surrounded by dense canopies of tropical flora, learning to navigate the tides rather than fighting them. Life moves at a pace dictated entirely by natural cycles rather than rigid schedules or corporate deadlines. So, before you get completely comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel, but only if you truly enjoy what we're creating here. Where are you listening from tonight? And what local time is it where you are? Please feel free to share your quiet location in the comments below, as we always love reading where our listeners settle in for the night. Now, slowly dim the lights. Perhaps turn on a fan, letting the steady hum of the air fill the room. And in that gentle rhythm, we quietly step into tonight's journey together. As the morning sun slowly dissolves the dense river mist, the landscape awakens with the gentle calls of waterbirds and the quiet rustle of wind through towering reeds. Beneath your feet, the vast alluvial plain continues to grow, shaped by countless layers of sediment carried from the distant Yunnan Mountains. Each seasonal flood spreads fresh, nutrient-rich silt across the delta, renewing the land with patient consistency. Nature follows its own timeless rhythm, never rushing, yet steadily creating one of Southeast Asia's most fertile landscapes. You watch small family groups emerge onto the muddy riverbanks, their bare feet moving confidently across marshes they have known since childhood. Rather than clearing vast forests or raising monumental stone structures to dominate the land, these early communities shape their lives around the river's natural contours. Their villages blend quietly into the wetlands, reflecting a deep respect for the environment. Every choice suggests they understand a simple truth. Humans are temporary guests, while the rivers remain the enduring guardians of the land. Looking across the vast delta, you find no towering stone walls, imposing palace fortresses, or grand capital rising above the horizon. No single city commands the surrounding settlements, and no heavily guarded royal frontier divides the land. Instead, small clusters of raised wooden homes rest beside rivers and marshes, separated by forests yet quietly connected through winding waterways. This is a civilization that thrives without concentrating authority in the hands of one absolute ruler, relying instead on shared responsibility and enduring local autonomy. The intricate network of rivers, streams, and estuaries serves as the lifeblood of the entire delta, connecting distant communities with quiet efficiency. Wooden canoes drift along narrow waterways, carrying news, polished stone tools, woven textiles, and harvested goods from village to village. Rather than creating disorder, the absence of centralized rule encourages trust, cooperation, and mutual support. Across this peaceful landscape, stability emerges naturally through relationships, shared traditions, and the gentle rhythm of water linking every settlement together. You can hear the steady, rhythmic splash of wooden paddles cutting through the dark, reflective water as travelers navigate the intricate delta channels. The river serves as both highway and provider, supplying a constant abundance of fish, crustaceans, and fertile planting grounds without requiring centralized administration. In this ancient wetland, independence and connectivity exist in perfect harmony, creating an environment where individual communities thrive through shared natural resources. Archaeological discoveries along the northern riverbanks reveal that these early communities developed strikingly similar toolmaking traditions despite the absence of centralized control. Polished stone axes, finely crafted slate ornaments, and carefully shaped earthenware pottery appear across settlements separated by rivers and forests, reflecting a shared cultural identity rather than political authority. Knowledge spread as naturally as the flowing water itself, traveling from village to village through daily exchange, family connections, and quiet cooperation instead of royal commands, official messengers, or imperial administration. As dusk begins to settle over the flooded forests, the sky turns shades of soft violet and muted orange, reflecting perfectly in the still waters below. Smoke rises softly from cooking fires built on elevated hearths inside timber houses, floating into the cool evening air. Families gather to share the daily harvest, their soft voices blending with the nocturnal sounds of chirping crickets and rustling leaves along the shore. You stand quietly along the gentle riverbank, watching dark waters carry drifting leaves toward the distant sea, feeling the deep serenity of an ancient land at rest. Here, the absence of a central throne reflects not weakness, but a thoughtful way of life shaped by trust, shared responsibility, and harmony with nature. Flowing rivers bind every village together, linking homes, fields, and families into a peaceful network where balance, rather than conquest, preserves order across the fertile delta generation after generation. The darkness settles more deeply across the vast alluvial plain, gently covering the marshes, winding rivers, and quiet forests in a cool, peaceful embrace. The river's steady murmur continues its timeless passage toward the Gulf of Tonkin, following the same ancient course it has traced for countless generations. Above, countless stars shimmer through the canopy as the peaceful land rests below. This decentralized world endures quietly, sustained not by empires, but by resilient people and life-giving waters. You step softly through the morning mist into the lush valleys of the Red River Delta during the second millennium before the Common Era. Archaeological excavations at sites like Feng Nguyen, Dongdao, and Gomun reveal a continuous thread of human life stretching across centuries. These ancient settlements form a delicate chain of human activity along the fertile terraces, where generations of villagers live in quiet harmony with the land. The transition from stone tools to bronze casting unfolded gradually, almost too slowly for any generation to notice. Walking through an excavated Feng Nguyen village, you notice stilt houses constructed with sturdy timber beams and thatched roofs elevated safely above the damp soil. Beneath the floorboards, archaeological layers preserve the quiet details of daily life: smooth polished stone adzes, finely decorated ceramic jars, and spindle whorls used for spinning thread. The pottery displays intricate geometric patterns carved into soft clay with remarkable precision and artistic care. Interestingly, crafting these detailed ceramic patterns required such patience that it makes assembling flat pack furniture without the instruction manual seem like a frantic high-speed sport. A central hearth burns gently inside each home, filling the living space with a subtle scent of burning wood and earth. Charcoal remains and plant microfossils show that these early villagers cultivate deep-rooted wet rice varieties in the surrounding lowlands while gathering wild fruits and nuts from nearby hill slopes. They raise domestic pigs and dogs, complementing their diet with plentiful river fish and freshwater mollusks harvested from local streams. Every household functions as an independent economic unit, producing its own tools and preparing its own food without paying taxes to a distant royal court. The spatial arrangement of pre-Dongsan villages reveals a society organized around cooperation rather than rigid social hierarchy. Homes stood in small clusters along elevated natural levees, safely above seasonal floods, while remaining close to rivers that supplied water, food, and transportation. Archaeological evidence from the Feng Nguyen culture, dating roughly 2000 to 1500 BCE, shows no monumental palaces, defensive citadels, or royal compounds dominating these settlements. Instead, each community appears to have functioned through local leadership, shared responsibilities, and close ties with neighboring villages. Burial discoveries further strengthen this picture of a relatively balanced society. Excavations at Feng Nguyen cemeteries have uncovered modest grave goods, including clay vessels, nephrite jade beads, polished stone tools, and simple personal ornaments distributed with remarkable consistency among individuals. Unlike contemporary civilizations where elite tombs overflowed with precious treasures, these northern communities left little evidence of extreme social inequality. The archaeological record instead suggests that prestige arose through craftsmanship, experience, and contribution to communal life rather than inherited political authority or concentrated wealth. As centuries passed into the Dongdao period, around 1500 to 1000 BCE, bronze technology gradually joined long-established stone traditions without disrupting the social fabric. Village artisans experimented with copper and tin, acquired through expanding regional exchange networks, producing fishhooks, socketed axes, chisels, awls, and delicate sewing needles. Bronze tools improved farming, woodworking, and fishing while complementing existing practices instead of replacing them overnight. Technological innovation spread steadily from settlement to settlement, strengthening everyday life without creating powerful ruling elites or centralized political institutions. By the time the Gomun culture flourishes along the riverbanks, bronze technology achieves impressive technical sophistication. Heavy bronze sickles, spearheads, and decorative bracelets become common items within community life. Yet despite this technological advancement, settlements remain modest in size and decentralized in organization. No massive stone monuments or defensive fortifications appear in the landscape, indicating a long era characterized by relative peace and localized self-governance. The rhythm of daily life follows the natural flood cycle of the major rivers flowing through the region. During the monsoon season, swollen waters cover the low-lying fields, depositing fresh layers of nutrient-rich silt across the landscape. Rather than fighting the inundation with massive dikes, villagers adapt by raising their homes on stilted posts and utilizing canoes for daily transportation. When the floodwaters recede, they plant rice in the wet mud, allowing nature to do the heavy work of soil preparation. Community decisions emerge through consensus among village elders gathered around open fires in the cool evening air. Without a central king to issue binding decrees or enforce imperial law, local customs and shared traditions govern social behavior. Disputes over land or fishing rights are settled through established village customs passed down orally through generations. The river system acts as a natural bridge between these self-governing communities, facilitating friendly visits and material exchanges. You watch a craftsman melt raw copper and tin inside a simple earthenware crucible set over hot coals. He carefully pours the glowing liquid metal into a two-piece sandstone mold to form a sharp, functional socketed axe head. The skill required for bronze casting is shared openly among neighboring villages, preventing any single group from monopolizing this transformative technology. Craft knowledge flows as freely across the valley as the water flowing through the surrounding streams. As afternoon light softens into golden shades across the timber houses, children gather near the riverbank to splash in the shallows. Women process harvested rice using stone mortars, their rhythmic pounding creating a steady beat that echoes across the village clearing. The air carries the rich scent of damp earth, roasting fish, and tropical vegetation settling in the cooling air. Life moves forward with an enduring stability that spans generations without needing dramatic political changes. The gentle continuity of these pre-Dongsan societies raises a fascinating question about the nature of human organization. If a civilization can develop advanced metallurgy, practice sophisticated agriculture, and maintain peaceful trade networks across hundreds of miles without a central capital city or a divine king, what truly holds them together? The answer lies in the invisible web of shared culture, river navigation, and mutual respect between independent villages. Night settles gently over the river valley, wrapping the stilt houses and terraced fields in soft darkness. Stars appear one by one in the clear night sky, reflecting off the quiet surface of the winding river below. The gentle hum of nocturnal insects creates a soothing soundtrack for the sleeping village, where families rest peacefully on woven bamboo mats. The valley slumbers securely, held together not by iron laws or stone walls, but by the quiet bonds of community and river. As the Dongsan culture reaches its full brilliance along the river basins of northern Vietnam during the first millennium before the Common Era, The landscape blossoms with artistic and technological mastery. Yet, as you walk through this thriving Bronze Age world, archaeological evidence reveals a striking absence. There is no single grand capital city, no imperial palace, and no massive central monument dominating the region. The culture spans hundreds of miles across river valleys, unified not by an absolute monarch sitting on a golden throne, but by a vibrant, interconnected network of self-governing villages. Archaeological excavations across the Red, Ma, and Sia river deltas reveal a striking consistency in Dongsan material culture despite the absence of a centralized state. Bronze drums, socketed axes, spearheads, pottery, and decorative motifs appear throughout northern Vietnam, reflecting strong cultural connections among communities. Dating from roughly 700 BCE to the early centuries CE, the Dongsan culture spread through networks of rivers, trade, and shared ritual traditions, rather than through conquest or direct political control from a single royal capital. Unlike many contemporary civilizations that displayed authority through monumental palaces, massive city walls, or stone pyramids, the Lac Viet invested their craftsmanship in objects serving both practical and ceremonial purposes. Historical and archaeological evidence suggests power remained largely in the hands of village leaders and regional chiefdoms, linked by alliances, marriage ties, seasonal gatherings, and river-based exchange. This decentralized system fostered remarkable cultural continuity across the fertile river deltas, while allowing local communities to preserve their traditions and adapt independently to changing conditions. The primary threads connecting these decentralized communities were the rivers themselves, navigated effortlessly by lightweight dugout canoes. Bronze artifacts depict sleek longboats powered by synchronized rowers, carrying goods, ceremonial items, and news between riverside settlements. Wet rice cultivation thrived in this aquatic environment, sustained by small-scale communal irrigation systems managed directly by the villagers who worked the fields. Water flowed naturally from field to field, just as decision-making flowed through consensus among community elders rather than imperial decrees handed down from above. At the center of social and ritual life sat the iconic bronze drum, an artifact of incredible technological complexity and deep symbolic meaning. These drums were not created to glorify a single emperor, but served as powerful ceremonial centerpieces for local communities. The intricate relief patterns cast onto their surfaces capture the daily life and spiritual world of the Lac Viet. People pounding rice in rhythmic harmony, dancers wearing elaborate feathered headdresses, musicians playing reed instruments, and longboats gliding across waters filled with fish and wading birds. The radiant star with multiple rays found at the center of many drumheads symbolizes the sun, the ultimate source of life and seasonal rhythms for an agricultural society. Surrounding the sun, concentric bands depict geometric motifs, flying egrets, and scenes of communal celebration. When struck during seasonal festivals or rainmaking rituals, the deep resonance of the bronze drum echoed across the water, calling neighboring villages together in shared tradition. The sound carried across the river basins, creating a sense of unity that needed no stone borders to define its reach. Trade between these independent settlements flourished along the watery highways of the delta. Fishermen, metallurgists, potters, and farmers exchanged surplus rice, bronze tools, salt, and forest products at riverbank markets. This fluid economic exchange encouraged specialization and innovation without requiring a central authority to regulate prices or collect tribute. Quianluk authority was distributed like the water in a delta, splitting into countless small streams that nourished every corner of the land equally. In each village, daily life centered around the communal house and the shared hearths of elevated stilt dwellings. Village elders gathered to discuss planting schedules, settle local disputes, and plan seasonal festivals that marked the arrival of the monsoons. Respect was earned through wisdom, generosity, and skill in agriculture or craft rather than inherited royal bloodlines. The decentralized structure proved remarkably resilient, allowing individual communities to adapt flexibly to local environmental changes without waiting for permission from a distant court. As dusk settles over the delta, soft lights flicker from stilt houses along the riverbank, each flame reflecting like a fallen star on the calm water. The evening breeze carries the gentle scent of steaming rice and wood smoke through the palm trees. Neighbors sit together on woven bamboo porches, sharing stories of the day's harvest while listening to the distant call of night birds across the marsh. Each village remains unique while contributing naturally to the wider interconnected community. The bronze casting workshops that operated within these villages demonstrated an extraordinary level of technical skill, utilizing complex piece mold techniques to craft delicate tools, ornaments, and weapons. Socketed axes, decorative daggers, and bronze plows were produced locally and shared across regional exchange networks. Metallurgy was not a secret state monopoly kept behind fortress walls, but a celebrated craft that enhanced the daily work and ritual life of every community along the river. The burial practices of the Dongsan period further illustrate this balanced social landscape. While some graves contain a higher number of bronze drums, weapons, or jade ornaments, indicating respected leaders or master artisans, the overall distribution of wealth remains relatively modest compared to heavily stratified imperial societies. Leaders were interred within their native soil alongside the tools and symbols of their community's service, surrounded by the quiet fields they helped cultivate. The enduring strength of this decentralized network lay in its organic flexibility. If a flood devastated one branch of the river, neighboring villages along other tributaries could readily step in with support and trade goods. Without a central capital to capture or a single monarch to depose, the Lac Viet preserved their identity through countless daily interactions across hundreds of autonomous villages. Their shared traditions, river networks, and community cooperation created a resilient cultural foundation that endured without relying on centralized political authority. Night descends fully over the vast, peaceful delta, painting the sky in deep shades of indigo and slate. The gentle lap of water against wooden canoe hulls creates a rhythmic lullaby that settles over the riverside settlements. Inside the stilt houses, families sleep peacefully under the protective canopy of ancient trees, knowing that their community is anchored by shared heritage, natural abundance, and the quiet harmony of the river. You lean closer beneath the warm afternoon light, observing every careful movement with quiet fascination and admiration, observing the surface of an ancient Dongsan bronze drum with unhurried curiosity. The cool metal bears intricate, low-relief engravings that invite your eyes to follow every curve and line. Near the center, a radiant sun with 12 sharp rays radiates outward, surrounded by concentric bands filled with stylized birds in mid-flight, rhythmic dancers wearing feathered headdresses, and villagers pounding grain in long wooden mortars. Every engraved figure tells a story of a society profoundly attuned to the pulse of nature and community life. These bronze drums were far more than magnificent musical instruments or symbols of local status. They were sacred anchors of the Lac Viet world. Artisans crafted them using sophisticated lost wax and multi-piece ceramic mold techniques, requiring an exceptionally high mastery of metallurgy that flourished without a centralized state foundry. Interestingly, casting a massive bronze drum with perfect geometric symmetry using ancient clay molds makes tuning a delicate acoustic guitar look like child's play. As archaeologists map the distribution of Dongsan bronze drums, an extraordinary picture of regional connectivity gradually emerges. These remarkable artifacts have been discovered throughout the Red River Delta, the Ma and Sia river valleys, central Vietnam, southern China, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, and even the islands of Indonesia. Dating mainly between 600 BCE and 200 CE, their wide distribution reflects extensive networks of river and maritime exchange that linked communities across Southeast Asia long before large centralized states dominated the region. The remarkable spread of Dongsan drums illustrates far more than commercial trade. Each drum embodied sophisticated bronze casting knowledge, ritual symbolism, and shared cultural values carried from one community to another. Rather than expanding through military conquest, these masterpieces traveled as prestigious gifts, ceremonial objects, diplomatic exchanges, and treasured heirlooms. River routes flowing into coastal waters connected hundreds of settlements, allowing ideas, craftsmanship, beliefs, and social traditions to circulate peacefully across vast distances for many generations. Modern archaeological excavations have uncovered another fascinating practice surrounding these celebrated bronze drums. Many were intentionally buried while still in excellent condition, carefully placed inside large earthenware containers or stone-lined pits instead of being abandoned after damage. Archaeologists interpret these deliberate burials as ritual offerings associated with ancestral ceremonies, leadership transitions, or important communal events. To the Dongsan people, a bronze drum represented far more than a musical instrument. It embodied memory, identity, spiritual continuity, and the enduring harmony of the entire community. The scenes carved into the bronze offer a vivid glimpse into the daily life and aquatic culture of the ancient delta. Sleek longboats with curved bows glide across bands of water, carrying rowers who move together in perfect unison. On deck, feathered warriors hold shields while horn players signal across the waves, depicting ceremonial boat races or ritual journeys rather than aggressive naval warfare. The river was their primary road, their source of nourishment, and the backdrop for their most sacred celebrations. The sound of the drum itself held profound physical and spiritual power for the Lac Viet. When struck with padded wooden beaters during seasonal festivals or rainmaking ceremonies, the deep, resonant vibrations traveled for miles across the damp river valleys. The low frequency echoed off the hillsides and rippled across the water, imitating the rolling thunder that heralded the arrival of life-giving monsoon rains. It was a call that brought neighboring settlements together in shared awe and cooperation. Crafting a single bronze drum required the collective effort and resources of an entire village ecosystem. Prospectors gathered copper, tin, and lead ores from mountain streams. Woodcutters produced high-grade charcoal for the furnaces, and master sculptors carved delicate beeswax models. Because the process involved the cooperation of so many skilled hands, the completed drum belonged in spirit to the whole community, standing as a tangible testament to their shared skill and unity. As warm afternoon light filters through the forest canopy above a quiet riverside village, you watch a master bronze artisan carefully polish the rim of a newly cast drum until it gleams. Nearby, dancers rehearse graceful movements for the approaching harvest festival, while delicate bronze bells fastened to their bracelets ring with every step. The air carries the scent of damp earth, beeswax, cooling metal, and blooming jasmine drifting gently across the river, blending into an atmosphere of calm craftsmanship and joyful anticipation. The imagery on the drums also highlights the equal importance of land and water in the Lac Viet mindset. Alongside aquatic birds and swift boats, you see sturdy deer, flying egrets, and detailed depictions of elevated timber homes with high arched roofs resembling flipped canoes. This architectural design allowed heavy rains to slide off easily while keeping living spaces dry and well ventilated during hot summer months. The absence of a supreme king shaped a different vision of leadership across the Lac Viet world. Influence grew through cultural stewardship, ritual authority, and service to the community, rather than military domination. A respected chief demonstrated prestige by sponsoring bronze drum casting, supporting skilled artisans, and hosting ceremonies that strengthened social bonds. Authority rested on generosity, wisdom, and the ability to preserve harmony among neighboring villages linked by rivers, shared traditions, seasonal gatherings, and enduring networks of mutual trust across the fertile delta. As evening settles across the delta, the warm glow of the village foundry gradually softens into pale gray ash. The steady rhythm of bronze hammers fades, replaced by the gentle murmur of flowing water, the whisper of bamboo bending in the breeze, and the distant chorus of bullfrogs echoing through the marshes. The sharp scent of heated metal disappears beneath the cool air drifting inland from the Gulf, while the entire landscape relaxes into the peaceful rhythm that has guided these communities for generations. The deep voice of the bronze drum slowly dissolves into the endless sound of flowing rivers, leaving only a quiet echo carried across the wetlands. Within that fading resonance lives the memory of a people who believed lasting strength emerged through balance, craftsmanship, cooperation, and respect for nature instead of conquest. You remain beside the tranquil water, watching darkness embrace the delta, comforted by the enduring continuity of a civilization whose heartbeat has always followed the timeless rhythm of the rivers. You drift along a gentle tributary of the Red River, watching how the vast network of waterways shapes every aspect of life in the ancient Lac Viet world. Here, The river is not merely a geographic feature to be crossed or conquered, it is the fundamental framework of society. The interconnected streams, estuaries, and seasonal floodplains form a natural system of geopolitical organization, where every river basin develops its own distinct character, while remaining deeply connected to its neighbors through shared waters. The physical geography of the northern delta made absolute political centralization almost impossible and entirely unnecessary. Annual monsoon floods regularly transformed the landscape into a vast, shallow sea, turning elevated villages into temporary islands. In such an environment, trying to enforce rigid, centralized control from a single distant capital would be like trying to organize a school of fish using written notices. Instead, the natural ebb and flow of the tides encouraged a flexible, decentralized structure where local communities managed their own land and water resources. Trade flowed along these natural liquid highways with steady, predictable regularity. Sleek wooden canoes laden with raw copper ingots, sea salt from coastal pans, forest timber, and fragrant rice glided between settlements on every rise of the tide. This continuous circulation of goods created a shared economic life without requiring tax collectors, imperial customs posts, or official state monopolies. Prosperity was measured by the smooth movement of goods from hand to hand across the delta. One of the most remarkable achievements of the Lac Viet lay in their sophisticated adaptation to the river environment. Instead of forcing nature into submission with monumental stone dams, these communities developed flexible systems that worked alongside seasonal flooding. Archaeological evidence from the Red River Delta suggests they built modest earthen embankments, drainage channels, retention ponds, and raised fields that guided water rather than blocked it. Annual floods deposited fertile silt across the landscape, renewing agricultural land and sustaining productive rice cultivation for generations. This water-centered landscape demanded cooperation far beyond the boundaries of a single village. Rivers, canals, and floodplains connected neighboring communities into an interdependent network where one settlement's actions directly influenced another's harvest and fisheries. If an upstream village diverted a channel or expanded irrigation works, downstream communities immediately felt the effects. Such conditions encouraged consultation instead of conflict. Local leaders likely met during seasonal gatherings and ritual festivals to negotiate water management, coordinate planting schedules, and preserve long-term stability throughout the delta. Historical evidence indicates that the economy of the Lac Viet extended well beyond rice cultivation alone. Rivers, marshes, estuaries, and mangrove wetlands supplied abundant fish, freshwater shellfish, shrimp, turtles, and edible aquatic plants throughout the year. Fishermen relied on woven bamboo traps, cast nets, fish weirs, and long fishing lines adapted to changing tides and river currents. This diverse aquatic food supply reduced dependence on a single harvest, strengthening village resilience during years of unpredictable weather or fluctuating river conditions. The combination of fertile floodplains, carefully managed waterways, and abundant aquatic resources created a decentralized society with remarkable long-term stability. Rather than concentrating wealth and authority within a single royal center, prosperity remained widely distributed among interconnected communities. Each village maintained considerable independence while contributing to a larger network united by rivers, seasonal cooperation, and shared traditions. For centuries, this balanced relationship between people and water sustained one of Southeast Asia's earliest enduring cultural landscapes, flourishing through cooperation, environmental harmony, and shared traditions without relying upon an expansive centralized bureaucracy. As you glide past a lively river landing in the late afternoon, women rinse woven fibers in the clear shallows while children laugh and play along the muddy banks. Nearby, traders exchange rolls of hand-woven cloth for freshly gathered betel nuts, clay pots, dried fish, and other village goods. Friendly conversations drift across the water, blending with gentle laughter and birdsong. Nothing feels hurried or tense. Every exchange follows the calm, unhurried rhythm of the river that quietly sustains daily life. The rivers that sustained everyday life also shaped the spiritual imagination of the Lac Viet. Archaeological motifs on Dongsan bronze drums, ceremonial vessels, and decorative ornaments frequently depict waterbirds, boats, fish, and flowing geometric patterns linked to rivers and seasonal cycles. Ancient traditions honored powerful river spirits, dragon-like beings, and sacred birds believed to guide prosperity and fertility. These shared beliefs strengthened cultural identity across distant settlements, reminding every community that survival depended upon respecting the life-giving yet unpredictable rhythms of the natural world. Without a permanent royal army or centralized bureaucracy enforcing authority, peaceful relations relied upon enduring networks of kinship, marriage alliances, ritual gatherings, and ceremonial gift exchange. Village leaders strengthened trust by presenting finely cast bronze vessels, decorated drums, polished nephrite jade ornaments, or valuable local products to neighboring communities. Such exchanges carried symbolic meaning beyond material value, reinforcing mutual obligations and long-term cooperation. These relationships protected river trade, reduced the likelihood of conflict, and encouraged stability throughout the interconnected waterways of northern Vietnam. The broad river systems and forested landscapes naturally preserve the independence of individual communities while allowing cultural exchange to flourish. A traveler journeying from the Ma River Basin to the Sia River Valley might notice differences in pottery styles, house construction, weaving patterns, musical traditions, or local dialects. Yet beneath these regional variations remained remarkably consistent social values rooted in cooperation, respect for ancestors, river-based livelihoods, and communal responsibility. Diversity and unity existed together, sustained by waterways that connected people without erasing their distinct identities. As twilight falls over the winding river, the water reflects the deep indigo sky like a long silver ribbon stretching toward the horizon. Small lanterns made from hollowed gourds glow softly on the bows of moored canoes, casting warm light across the calm surface. The gentle splashing of a jumping fish breaks the quiet, sending soft ripples outward until they fade into the dark banks. You sit peacefully by the water's edge, listening to the soft murmur of the river as it flows quietly toward the sea. In this ancient world, order was not imposed from above by a heavy hand, but arose naturally from the shared necessity of living along the water. The river carried every decision, every trade, and every memory, binding the Lac Viet together in an enduring, tranquil flow. As the centuries gently turn toward the late first millennium before the Common Era, subtle waves of change begin to ripple across the northern valleys of Lingnan. Beyond the northern mountain passes, the Warring States period reaches its violent climax, giving rise to the short-lived Qin dynasty and eventually the expansive Han Empire. Yet down in the damp, emerald delta of the Lac Viet, political power does not shift through sudden cataclysmic transformation. Instead, influence shifts like the gradual arrival of the autumn monsoon, a slow atmospheric change that alters the surrounding air long before the first heavy raindrop hits the canopy. Rather than an overnight military conquest that erases native identity, ancient historical records and archaeological layers show a complex, multi-layered process of cultural interaction. Northern administrators, merchants, and scholars moved southward along river corridors, bringing new concepts of centralized bureaucracy, writing systems, and iron technology. Yet these foreign systems do not land on empty ground. They encounter a deeply rooted, resilient network of local chiefdoms and river communities who are skilled at adopting useful external ideas while quietly preserving their own social rhythms. A major turning point in ancient Vietnamese history emerged during the 3rd century BCE with the construction of Ko Loa Citadel under the rule of An Dung Vuong, founder of the Olac Kingdom. Rising in the heart of the Red River Delta, the enormous fortress featured 3 concentric spiral earthen walls, broad defensive moats, and carefully planned entrances. Its unprecedented scale required the coordinated labor of thousands of workers, reflecting one of the earliest known efforts to establish centralized political authority and organized military defense in northern Vietnam. Archaeological excavations at Ko Loa have revealed an extraordinary concentration of bronze arrowheads casting molds, furnaces, iron implements, and manufacturing debris, confirming that the citadel functioned as both a military stronghold and an advanced production center. The famous discovery of thousands of standardized bronze arrows suggests organized weapon manufacture on a scale previously unseen in the region. These findings indicate that technological innovation, skilled craftsmanship, and centralized planning were becoming increasingly important during the formation of the Olac state. Despite the impressive walls and growing authority centered at Koloa, everyday life beyond the fortress changed far more gradually than its monumental architecture might suggest. Villages throughout the Red River Delta continued cultivating rice, managing irrigation, honoring ancestors, and organizing communal rituals according to long established traditions. Archaeological evidence shows remarkable continuity in settlement patterns, pottery production, agricultural practices, and local craftsmanship. The emerging royal center added a new administrative layer without immediately replacing the deeply rooted village institutions that had sustained the Lac Viet for centuries. This coexistence between centralized authority and enduring local autonomy became one of the defining characteristics of the Eolac period. Historical traditions describe regional leaders known as Lac Ho and Lac Tuong continuing to govern local territories while recognizing the authority of An Duong Vuong. Rather than eliminating traditional leadership, the new kingdom incorporated existing networks into a broader political structure. The result was a unique system where royal administrations strengthened regional defense, while village communities preserved the cultural traditions, social cooperation, and local governance inherited from earlier generations. As you wander along the shaded footpaths that trace the remaining earthworks of Koloa today, you can observe how naturally the ancient fortification blends back into the countryside. Over centuries, wild bamboo groves, soft moss, and fruit orchards have blanketed the massive earthen ramparts, softening their once intimidating edges. Nature seems to gently remind every human empire that regardless of how high a ruler builds his walls, the earth beneath them eventually reclaims the space in quiet silence. The gradual introduction of iron technology alongside traditional bronze casting brought subtle shifts to agricultural production as well. Iron-tipped plows, pulled by water buffalo, allowed farmers to cultivate deeper, heavier clay soils along the lower river terraces, boosting rice yields and supporting growing populations. Yet this technological leap did not require a total upheaval of social values. Instead, it enriched the material foundation of village life while leaving the core spirit of mutual aid unchanged. Trade along the coastal and riverine routes expanded significantly during this period, bringing luxury goods, glazed ceramics, and copper coins from distant markets into Delta homes. Local artisans examined these foreign imports with open curiosity, frequently adapting new shapes and glazing techniques into their own pottery workshops. The Lac Viet culture demonstrated an incredible capacity for selective absorption, taking what was practical or beautiful from outside influences while remaining firmly anchored in its own heritage. During quiet afternoons in the village, life kept time with the steady flow of the seasons rather than the decrees posted in distant administrative headquarters. Farmers cleared channels, mended woven fish traps, and gathered in open pavilions to share betel nut and herbal teas. The steady rise and fall of the river remained a far more urgent reality in their daily lives than the shifting titles of distant imperial governors residing behind garrison walls. Political alliances during this transitional era were fluid and constantly evolving, governed by pragmatism rather than ideological rigidity. Local leaders negotiated agreements with northern officials when it benefited their communities, while maintaining strong horizontal ties with neighboring river chiefdoms. This flexible approach to governance allowed the Lac Viet people to navigate centuries of geopolitical turbulence without losing their underlying cultural cohesion or social stability. As evening light settles across the peaceful landscape, the long shadow of the ancient earthen walls stretches gently over the surrounding rice fields. Farmers guide their weary water buffalo home along narrow paths, their quiet footsteps sinking softly into the damp soil. A cool breeze stirs the banana leaves and tall bamboo, carrying the fresh scent of rain-soaked earth through the tranquil settlement as the fading daylight gives way to another calm night beside the river. The ancient earthworks stand silent under the silver light of a rising moon, holding the quiet history of an era when power tried to gather itself into a single center. Yet the river flowing past the citadel gates continues its journey uninterrupted, carrying the quiet resilience of the delta forward into the unknown future. You rest in the deep stillness of the night, feeling the calm balance between changing empires and enduring land. You step quietly into the shaded courtyard of a quiet historical archive, watching sunlight filter through ancient bamboo blinds onto soft parchment maps. Look closely at the territorial outlines drawn during the Han Dynasty, when the northern administrative regions of Jiaoji, Juzhen, and Renan were formally inscribed into imperial records. On paper, rigid ink lines divide the land into neat commanderies and counties, suggesting total administrative control from a distant capital. Yet in reality, these official borders were far softer and more fluid than the crisp lines drawn by royal cartographers. Historical research and archaeological evidence reveal that beneath this newly imposed imperial superstructure, the native Lac Viet village networks continued their traditional way of life with remarkable continuity. The Han administration established garrison towns and tax collection centers along major river highways, but their direct influence rarely penetrated the dense bamboo hedges surrounding local hamlets. The actual day-to-day governance of the countryside remained in the hands of indigenous village elders and traditional local leaders who understood the subtle rhythms of the delta. This administrative duality created a fascinating historical balance that lasted for centuries. To the distant imperial court, the region was an official southern province, contributing valuable tropical goods like pearls, ivory, cinnamon, and kingfisher feathers. But to the families tilling the rice paddies, the imperial governor was a distant figure who mattered far less than the seasonal floods or the decision of the local village council. The real map of the region was not defined by imperial ink, but by the living web of kinship, trade, and shared irrigation channels that linked neighboring communities. The flexible nature of ancient frontiers allowed people to travel across river valleys and coastal waterways according to trade, farming, and seasonal fishing, rather than fixed political boundaries. Fishermen sailed through the estuaries linking Jiaoji and Juzhen, exchanging dried fish, sea salt, forest products, and mountain iron with neighboring communities. Rivers ignored administrative divisions entirely, following natural channels shaped by rainfall and terrain. Daily life remained connected by waterways that encouraged movement, commerce, and cultural exchange across northern Vietnam for generations. One of the most remarkable features of this period was the ability of local communities to embrace new administrative practices while preserving their own cultural identity. Chinese writing, official records, and legal institutions gradually entered regional administration, giving village leaders additional tools for diplomacy, taxation, and communication. Yet these innovations did not erase local traditions. People continued speaking their native language, honoring their ancestors, observing traditional festivals, and passing oral customs from one generation to the next, ensuring the enduring spirit of the Lac Viet remained alive. In the centuries following the rise of Olac, village communities remained the true foundation of everyday life. Long before written legal codes became widespread, customary traditions, later known in Vietnamese as Phong Tục Tập Quan, guided relationships, inheritance, marriage, and the use of communal land. Elders and respected village leaders settled disputes through discussion and collective memory rather than formal courts. These deeply rooted customs allowed local communities to preserve social harmony while adapting gradually to changing political circumstances across northern Vietnam. Even during periods of foreign rule, particularly under successive Chinese dynasties beginning in the 2nd century BCE, the village retained remarkable resilience. Imperial officials collected taxes and supervised major administrative centers, yet daily affairs continued to be managed largely within local communities. Beneath the shade of ancient banyan trees, elders gathered to resolve disagreements over irrigation channels, field boundaries, family inheritance, and communal responsibilities. This enduring tradition helped protect local identity, allowing generations of Lac Viet descendants to preserve their language, customs, ancestral worship, and agricultural way of life. Walking beside a tranquil canal today, you can still sense how the landscape quietly reflects this ancient relationship between people and water. Floating water hyacinths drift effortlessly across invisible administrative boundaries, while the fertile alluvial soil continues to shift with each annual flood. Rivers reshape their banks according to natural rhythms rather than human maps. Just as they did thousands of years ago, these waterways remind every traveler that the enduring character of the delta has always belonged first to the flowing water and only second to political authority. The physical settlements of this era reflected this quiet resilience as well. While administrative headquarters featured tiled roofs and brick foundations, ordinary homes remained lightweight timber and bamboo stilt structures that could be quickly repaired or rebuilt after major storms. This flexible approach to material life meant that communities were never fully tied to a single physical location. If an imperial tax became too burdensome or a garrison grew too intrusive, entire villages could simply pack their belongings into canoes and resettle along a quieter tributary. This remarkable adaptability helped preserve the enduring spirit of the Lac Viet through centuries of changing political rule. Successive dynasties established new administrations, introduced different laws, and redrew territorial boundaries, yet village life continued according to traditions shaped by rivers and seasons. Official titles changed with each ruling power, but ordinary people measured time by rice harvests, seasonal floods, ancestral ceremonies, and the flowering of native trees. Beneath shifting governments, the cultural heartbeat of the Delta remained steady, resilient, and deeply rooted in community life. As dusk gradually settles across the low-lying fields, the lush green countryside softens beneath a warm violet sky. Thin columns of smoke rise from cooking fires hidden behind dense bamboo groves, carrying the comforting aroma of burning rice straw, grilled fish, and freshly cooked rice into the cooling evening air. Children return home laughing along narrow paths beside quiet canals, while frogs begin their rhythmic chorus from nearby marshes. The peaceful landscape settles naturally into another night shaped by timeless rural traditions and gentle river rhythms. Ancient maps preserved in historical records reveal the aims of kings, emperors, and distant courts, yet the deeper story of this land lives within the quiet endurance of its people. Political borders shifted repeatedly across the centuries, but the winding rivers, fertile floodplains, and familiar valleys continued following their ancient courses. Long after royal decrees disappeared into history, the landscape remained unchanged, sustaining generation after generation. Resting quietly beneath the evening sky, you sense the lasting peace of a homeland that has always outlived the maps drawn by human hands. You walk along a shaded dirt path leading into an ancient delta village where centuries of political shifts feel like distant echoes fading behind thick green bamboo hedges. Under the expansive canopy of a towering banyan tree, generations of villagers have gathered to honor traditions that refuse to yield to time or foreign pressure. While empires introduced new administrative structures and written legal codes, the intimate fabric of daily life, the beliefs, rituals, and agricultural customs of the Lac Viet, remained firmly anchored in the native soil, quietly choosing to stay. Ethnological studies and historical records reveal that the core spiritual life of the region centered on ancestral veneration and deep reverence for nature spirits, long before external philosophies arrived. Villagers viewed every river bend, ancient tree, and prominent hill as a living space guarded by local guardian deities known as Thun. These spiritual bonds created a profound sense of belonging that no political decree could dismantle. Interestingly, trying to convince an ancient village to abandon its sacred ancestral rites for foreign customs was about as successful as asking a stubborn cat to perform a choreographed synchronized swim routine on command. A central element of this enduring cultural identity was the practice of betel nut chewing, a social tradition that spanned all levels of society. Offering a slice of areca nut wrapped in a betel leaf with a touch of slaked lime served as the universal greeting, a gesture of hospitality that sealed friendships, finalized marriages, and resolved local disputes. The deep red stain left on the lips was worn as a proud symbol of cultural identity, a simple daily ritual that quietly resisted foreign concepts of elegance and social status. Agricultural festivals timed to the lunar calendar formed the heartbeat of communal life throughout the year. As the spring rains softened the fields, villagers gathered for the ceremonial plow festival, invoking the blessing of the earth and water spirits for an abundant rice crop. These celebrations featured traditional wrestling matches on the river and communal feasts where food was shared equally among all families. The collective celebration reinforced social solidarity, reminding every villager that their individual well being was inseparable from the prosperity of the entire community. Over the centuries, the communal house, known as the Dien, gradually became the physical and spiritual center of Vietnamese village life. Although its architectural form reached full development in later medieval periods, its roots lay in much older traditions of communal gathering inherited from the Lac Viet. Built collectively from durable local hardwood, bamboo, and thatched roofing, the Dien stood beside ancient banyan trees or village ponds. More than a building, it represented the shared identity, memory, and unity of an entire community bound together by generations of cooperation. Within the Dien, village elders gathered to discuss irrigation systems, organize planting and harvesting schedules, settle land disputes, and oversee communal property according to long established customs. The communal house also served as a sacred place where villagers honored the Than Huang, the guardian spirit believed to protect the settlement. Seasonal festivals, ancestral ceremonies, traditional performances, and important public decisions unfolded beneath its wooden beams. Even during periods of foreign administration, the Din remained a powerful symbol of local self-governance, preserving traditions that imperial institutions rarely displaced. Women also occupied an influential position within this enduring social framework, reflecting traditions that distinguished the Lac Viet from many neighboring societies. Historical records and later observations suggest women actively participated in agriculture, controlled household finances, traded extensively in village and regional markets, and contributed to important religious ceremonies. Their economic and social responsibilities remained significant, even as Confucian ideals gradually spread under successive dynasties. This enduring balance between men and women helped preserve the resilience of village life, strengthening families and reinforcing the cultural continuity of northern Vietnam across many centuries. As you sit on a smooth wooden bench outside a traditional timber house in the late afternoon, you watch an elderly woman teach her granddaughter how to weave intricate bamboo baskets. Her hands move with effortless grace, repeating patterns that have been passed down orally from grandmother to granddaughter across countless generations. No textbook or imperial academy was required to preserve this knowledge. It lived naturally within the muscles, memories, and daily routines of the people. The practice of tattooing the body with aquatic motifs, such as water dragons, fish, and geometric river patterns, was another deeply rooted custom that persisted for centuries. Originally adopted by fishermen to protect themselves from dangerous marine creatures while diving and netting in the estuaries, these tattoos became prized marks of bravery, group identity, and spiritual protection. Though foreign administrators occasionally frowned upon the practice, villagers continued to wear these permanent ink designs as proud badges of their aquatic heritage. Dietary traditions preserved one of the strongest living connections to the ancient landscapes of the Red River Delta. For thousands of years, daily meals centered on wet rice, freshwater fish, river shrimp, field crabs, seasonal vegetables, and fermented fish sauces carefully prepared in large earthenware jars beneath the tropical sun. Archaeological evidence from the Dong San culture reflects this close relationship between people and waterways. Many flavors enjoyed in northern Vietnam today echo culinary practices established long before written history, preserving cultural memory through everyday food. As twilight settles gently across the countryside, the warm glow of small oil lamps shines through the wooden walls of riverside homes, casting soft shadows across hand-woven bamboo mats. Families gather around low wooden tables to share freshly prepared rice, grilled fish, fragrant vegetables, and simple village dishes, while quiet conversations drift through the evening air. Outside, the comforting sense of burning rice straw, damp alluvial soil, and blooming lotus flowers mingle with the distant sounds of frogs and gently flowing water, completing another peaceful day. The empires that sought to reshape the region have long since dissolved into history books, but the quiet customs nurtured around these village hearths continue to live, breathe, and flourish. The resilience of the Lac Viet lay not in military fortresses or stone monuments, but in the soft, persistent flow of daily traditions that chose to stay rooted in the earth. You rest peacefully in the quiet night, wrapped in the comforting warmth of a culture that time could never wash away. You gaze across the broad Red River Delta as centuries drift by, like quiet clouds crossing a peaceful summer sky. Kingdoms emerge, dynasties proclaim their authority, and capitals rise before gradually fading into history. Yet beneath these political transformations, the rivers continue following their ancient channels with unwavering patience. From periods of Chinese administration to the birth of independent Vietnamese kingdoms, the landscape preserves a rhythm far older than any royal court, reminding every generation that nature often outlasts the ambitions of rulers. From a distant historical perspective, chronicles naturally emphasize emperors, military campaigns, and changes of dynasty. Yet for countless families living in bamboo-fringed villages throughout the Delta, these dramatic events often remained far beyond everyday experience. Farmers still prepared flooded rice fields with the arrival of the monsoon, fishermen launched wooden boats before sunrise, and artisans continued shaping pottery and bronze tools. The annual cycle of seasons, harvests, and ancestral ceremonies formed the true calendar of ordinary life across northern Vietnam. One of the most remarkable features of Vietnamese history is the extraordinary resilience of the Lang, or traditional village. Although successive governments introduced new administrative systems, taxation, and official regulations, village communities preserved their own institutions across many centuries. Elders managed communal land, settled local disputes, organized irrigation, and supervised religious festivals according to long-established customs. This continuity allowed local society to remain stable, even as kingdoms expanded, collapsed, and reorganized around it, creating one of Southeast Asia's most enduring rural traditions. The well-known proverb, Phép vua thua lệ lang, meaning the king's decree yields to village custom, reflects a historical reality rather than simple folklore. While royal authority governed the broader kingdom, village life continued according to deeply rooted customary practices accepted by generations of local residents. These unwritten traditions regulated inheritance, agriculture, water management, and communal responsibilities with remarkable consistency. Historians regard this balance between state administration and local autonomy as one of the defining characteristics of traditional Vietnamese society. When independent Vietnamese dynasties emerged after the long period of northern domination, rulers of the Ngo, Ding, early Lê, and Lý dynasties faced the challenge of building a stronger state while preserving the village foundations that had sustained society for centuries. The Ngo dynasty restored independence in the 10th century, followed by Ding Tin Huang, who established Dai Co Viet and built the capital at Hoa Lu. Later, the Lý dynasty moved the capital to Thăng Long, creating a more organized political center without completely replacing local traditions. These dynasties developed royal institutions, organized armies, collected agricultural taxes, and managed important projects such as river dikes and irrigation systems across the delta. However, beneath the authority of the court, thousands of villages continued maintaining their own customs, communal lands, and local leadership structures. The relationship between the state and village created a unique balance. The central government provided protection and coordination, while communities preserved their independence in daily life. This combination allowed Vietnamese civilization to remain culturally resilient through wars, political changes, and centuries of external pressure. As you walk along the moss-covered brick pathways of an ancient village that has survived through dozens of royal dynasties, you can feel the profound sense of continuity embedded in the soil. The small stone bridges spanning local irrigation canals, the quiet lotus ponds reflecting the sky, and the shade of 500-year-old banyan trees have witnessed generations of kings come and go. Royal authority was temporary, but the village remained permanent. Even the great wars and territorial struggles recorded in official chronicles were often experienced by village communities as temporary disruptions to the natural rhythm of life. When foreign armies entered the delta, local families retreated into forests, marshes, or nearby hills, carrying seeds, tools, and livestock for survival. After conflict ended, they returned to their ancestral lands, repaired damaged homes, restored irrigation channels, and replanted rice fields. Within a short period, the landscape gradually recovered, proving the remarkable resilience of communities shaped by rivers and agriculture. In traditional villages, respect did not come from royal titles or distant authority, but from character, wisdom, and contribution. An elder who protected the community through flood repairs or guidance was valued more than a powerful official. Villagers trusted lasting bonds over temporary power. As afternoon sunlight spreads a gentle golden glow across endless rice fields, you watch an elderly farmer slowly guide his water buffalo along a narrow earthen path between the paddies. The peaceful scene appears almost unchanged from ancient carvings and historical images preserved through centuries. Dynasties sought immortality through stone inscriptions, royal monuments, and grand declarations, yet the most enduring legacy was not created from stone. It remained alive in the cultivated fields, flowing rivers, village traditions, and the quiet perseverance of ordinary people. The philosophical culture nurtured within these ancient villages gradually absorbed influences from Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism while remaining deeply connected to indigenous ancestral traditions. Instead of pursuing abstract debates, ordinary people embraced ideas that created moral guidance, emotional balance, and social harmony. Families honored their ancestors through incense rituals, listened to Buddhist teachings on compassion, respected Confucian values of responsibility, and followed Taoist principles of living in accordance with nature. This blended worldview helped villagers maintain inner stability through generations of uncertainty. As evening slowly covers the countryside, the cool air carries the gentle fragrance of blooming jasmine, fresh rice fields, and cooking fires rising from wooden homes. Soft lullabies drift through open windows as parents soothe children to sleep with melodies remembered across countless generations. Far away, the deep sound of a temple bell travels across the darkened fields, lingering above quiet villages before gradually disappearing into the peaceful night. The landscape settles into silence, preserving the familiar rhythm of family, tradition, and nature. Every crown created by human hands eventually fades, and every palace built from ambition eventually returns to dust beneath the patient passage of time. Yet the rivers continue flowing, carrying fertile soil across the delta and sustaining the descendants of ancient communities. The spirit of the Lac Viet survives not through monuments of power, but through village traditions, family bonds, and the quiet endurance of ordinary people. Resting beneath the endless night sky, you understand that true strength comes not from controlling others, but from remaining balanced with the timeless earth. You gently place your hand against the cold glass display case inside a quiet regional museum, observing the delicate green patina covering an ancient Dongsan bronze spearhead. Thousands of years ago, this weapon was created by skilled craftsmen who mastered copper and tin casting beside the rivers of northern Vietnam. Alongside bronze drums, daggers, situlae, and decorative ornaments, these artifacts preserve the memory of a civilization that flourished between roughly the first millennium BCE, revealing the technological creativity and spiritual world of the ancient Lac Viet people. Many Dongsan artifacts survived through unexpected discoveries beneath the fertile soils of river deltas. Farmers repairing irrigation channels, construction workers preparing new foundations, and fishermen exploring riverbanks have occasionally uncovered bronze objects hidden for centuries beneath layers of sediment. These discoveries reveal that ancient settlements once existed across the Red River, Ma River, and Sha River regions. Each recovered artifact acts like a silent message from the past, helping archaeologists reconstruct forgotten aspects of daily life, trade, craftsmanship, and ritual practices. The process of bronze production itself reflects the remarkable organization and knowledge of Dongsan communities. Artisans needed to locate copper and tin sources, prepare clay molds, control intense furnace temperatures, and coordinate complex casting techniques. The famous Dongsan bronze drums demonstrate not only artistic skill, but also social cooperation, as their intricate patterns depict boats, warriors, dancers, animals, and ceremonial activities. Every surface detail offers clues about a society deeply connected to agriculture, rivers, warfare, and spiritual traditions. Standing before these ancient objects, you realize that history often survives in the most unexpected places. A simple excavation for a modern road or irrigation project may reveal treasures that remained hidden for thousands of years. These bronze artifacts are more than museum pieces. They are fragments of human stories preserved beneath the earth. Through them, the voices of forgotten craftsmen, farmers, and communities continue to speak, allowing future generations to understand the enduring legacy of the Dongsan civilization. Each artifact carries an unmistakable material memory, recording the precise chemical composition of copper and tin ores mined from ancient mountain streams, along with the distinct fingerprints of the craftspeople who molded them. Metallurgical analysis reveals that these ancient founders possessed an intuitive, highly sophisticated understanding of alloy proportions, achieving optimal hardness and flexibility without modern scientific equipment. They coaxed liquid metal into complex multi-piece clay molds with a degree of artistry that continues to baffle modern engineers. Unlike gold and silver objects that often represented personal wealth, royal authority, or social hierarchy in many ancient civilizations, Dongsan bronze artifacts served a broader communal purpose. Bronze axes, knives, tools, and ceremonial objects were created for agriculture, craftsmanship, rituals, and village activities. Archaeologists have discovered evidence of real use on many bronze implements, showing that these objects were not merely symbols of status, but practical creations deeply connected to the daily lives of Lac Viet communities. Bronze situlae, drums, and ritual vessels reveal a society that valued metal for its strength, beauty, and spiritual meaning, rather than simple material wealth. Decorated with scenes of boats, warriors, dancers, birds, and ceremonies, these objects preserved important memories of Dongsan culture. They stored grain, supported festivals, and carried symbolic messages between generations. Bronze became a medium that connected ancestors, communities, and the natural world, allowing the collective identity of the Lac Viet people to endure through time. As you move slowly from display to display in the quiet exhibition hall, the lighting remains soft and subdued, creating an atmosphere of deep contemplation. The silence of the museum feels remarkably similar to the deep peace of the ancient river valleys where these objects were first crafted and used. Without a single word spoken, the bronze dagger or polished bronze mirror communicates a profound sense of human dignity, aesthetic care, and technical mastery that transcends the boundaries of time. Many bronze artifacts were ritually broken and buried in jars or rivers with their owners as sacred offerings. This fascinating custom reflected an animistic worldview that believed inanimate objects possessed a spirit or life force of their own, which needed to be released so they could accompany their human companions into the spiritual realm. The broken bronze spoke a silent language of transition, honoring both the dead and the sacred continuity of life. The survival of these bronze treasures across millennia is largely thanks to the very wet, oxygen-poor mud of the delta floodplains that entombed them. The heavy layer of wet silt shielded the metal from rapid oxidation, acting as a gentle, protective womb that preserved delicate surface engravings through thousands of years of floods, earthquakes, and political upheavals. The land itself became the ultimate guardian of human history, holding on to its memories until the right moment arrived for them to be rediscovered. As afternoon sunlight filters gently through the tall museum windows, golden shadows stretch across the polished floor. You watch a young visitor quietly studying the detailed patterns carved onto an ancient Dongsan bronze drum. Although thousands of years separate the present from its creators, the symbols of boats, stars, animals, and ceremonies still awaken curiosity. True art carries a universal language, allowing emotions, memories, and human creativity to travel beyond time, geography, and cultural boundaries without needing words or explanation. The ancient bronze craftsmen understood that kingdoms, rulers, and political powers were temporary creations that would eventually disappear like mist above the river valleys. Yet bronze objects could survive, carrying the identity and beliefs of generations long after their makers were gone. Through drums, tools, ornaments, and ritual objects, the Lac Viet preserved their connection to community, nature, and ancestors. Their greatest legacy was not built around the glory of a single ruler, but shaped through countless creations shared among many villages. As evening slowly arrives and the museum prepares to close, the exhibition halls return to a peaceful silence surrounding the ancient artifacts. Under the soft glow of the final lights, the green surface of the bronze appears almost alive, resembling the moss-covered trunks of old trees beside the Red River. You step outside into the cool evening breeze, carrying a quiet sense of connection with a civilization whose memories remain preserved through timeless metal and the enduring creativity of its people. You stand quietly upon a high river embankment as twilight descends over the vast lowlands of northern Vietnam. Before your eyes stretches a landscape of green rice fields, winding waterways, and bamboo villages that have carried the memory of the Lac Viet for thousands of years. This decentralized social structure was not a sign of weakness or an unfinished civilization awaiting conquest. Instead, it represented a thoughtful adaptation to the unique environment of the Red River Delta, where communities learn to survive through cooperation, flexibility, and harmony with nature. Historical studies of early Vietnamese society reveal that lasting strength often comes from the ability of communities to organize themselves rather than relying entirely on centralized authority. The Lac Viet lived in a landscape shaped by seasonal floods, shifting rivers, and powerful monsoon cycles. A distant ruler could not always respond quickly to local challenges. Therefore, village communities developed their own systems for managing farmland, irrigation channels, communal resources, and social responsibilities. This local autonomy created a resilient foundation that allowed settlements to endure political changes and environmental hardships. The social organization of the Lac Viet resembled the natural character of bamboo forests growing throughout the delta. Bamboo does not depend on a single towering trunk for survival. Instead, countless stems remain connected through a shared underground root system, allowing the entire grove to withstand storms and recover after damage. In a similar way, ancient villages maintained strength through relationships between families, neighbors, and regional communities. Each settlement preserved its identity while remaining connected to a larger cultural network shaped by rivers and traditions. Across centuries, this flexible structure helped the Lac Viet preserve their cultural identity through changing political eras, from early chiefdoms to the formation of larger Vietnamese states. Their strength was not measured by massive monuments or absolute rulers, but by the ability of ordinary communities to cooperate and rebuild. Like bamboo returning upright after a storm, the villages of the Delta continued growing through adaptation, patience, and shared responsibility, leaving behind a legacy of resilience that still influences Vietnamese culture today. Every major political event recorded in history books, from ancient dynastic conflicts to foreign administrative changes, looks remarkably small when placed alongside the timeless cycles of the natural world. The annual arrival of the monsoon rains, the regular deposit of nutrient-rich silt across the fields, the golden ripening of the wet rice, and the seasonal migration of water birds were the true constants that governed human life. Empires came and went like brief summer rainstorms, but the land and the people who tended it remained anchored in an unbroken rhythm. The quiet wisdom inherited from the Lac Viet teaches that lasting survival comes from adapting to nature rather than attempting to overpower it. Living within the flood-prone landscapes of the Red River Delta, early communities developed elevated wooden houses, flexible farming methods, and water management techniques suited to seasonal changes. Instead of fighting the natural movement of rivers, they learned to cooperate with tides, floods, and fertile alluvial cycles. This relationship with the environment allowed their villages to flourish for generations, while maintaining harmony between people and the land. Rather than depending on absolute rulers who controlled every aspect of life, Lac Viet communities relied on local cooperation, village elders, shared customs, and collective decision-making. Archaeological evidence from Dong Son culture reveals remarkable achievements in bronze casting, agriculture, trade, and artistic expression despite the absence of a vast centralized empire. Their success demonstrated that complex societies could develop through mutual support and social balance. The legacy of the Lac Viet reminds later generations that innovation and prosperity can emerge not only from control, but also from trust, cooperation, and respect for natural rhythms. As you walk slowly along a quiet dirt path separating two flooded paddies, the evening air grows cool, fresh, and soothingly still. The soft reflection of the evening sky, shades of muted lavender, soft rose, and pale gold, turns the flooded fields into shimmering mirrors that stretch toward the dark horizon. Water buffalo rest peacefully in the shallows, their slow, steady breathing blending with the gentle rustle of evening breezes through the surrounding rice stalks. The peaceful atmosphere resting over the delta tonight is not an empty silence created by weakness, but the result of generations of resilience and adaptation. The descendants of the ancient Lac Viet continue living beside these rivers, farming fertile alluvial fields, gathering around family kitchens, and honoring ancestors through traditions passed down across centuries. Many cultural practices connected to agriculture, community cooperation, and respect for nature still reflect values that existed during the Dong Son period, when river life shaped the identity of early Vietnamese communities. History often honors empires through monuments, conquests, and powerful rulers, yet many eventually vanish. The Lac Viet showed another kind of strength, endurance through flexibility, cooperation, and shared responsibility. Their society survived through villages, families, rivers, and traditions, rather than dependence on a single throne or authority. The decentralized world of the Lac Viet survived because its foundation rested on connections rather than conquest. Like the rivers flowing through the delta, its power moved quietly but continuously, adapting to obstacles without losing direction. From the Bronze Age communities of Dong Son to later Vietnamese villages, the spirit of cooperation, cultural continuity, and harmony with the land remained deeply rooted. Their legacy reminds us that true strength does not always appear through force. Sometimes it exists in the quiet ability to endure, renew, and continue flowing through time. Night falls gently across the entire delta plain, wrapping every quiet hamlet, lotus pond, and winding tributary in a cool, dark blanket of absolute peace. The distant call of a night heron echoes softly across the marshlands before fading into the vast, calm darkness. The air smells cleanly of wet earth, night-blooming flowers, and cooling water, carrying a profound sense of tranquility that fills every corner of your mind. You rest in the deep stillness of this ancient landscape, feeling completely secure in the knowledge that true strength lies in adaptability, community, and quiet balance. The lesson of the Lac Viet is complete, leaving you wrapped in a gentle, timeless peace that soothes the spirit and clears away every modern worry. The delta slumbers deeply, held safely in the enduring embrace of its waters. You stand at the meeting point where the ancient waters of the Red River Delta slowly merge with the vast Gulf of Tonkin, watching the final rays of sunlight fade across the horizon. Looking back over the fertile plains, the history of the Lac Viet unfolds beyond battles and rulers. From early river settlements and the Dong Son culture to later Vietnamese kingdoms, the true story lies in the relationship between communities, waterways, agriculture, and traditions that endured through thousands of years. Across the immense landscape of northern Vietnam, generations of people built their lives around the natural rhythms of rivers and seasons. The alluvial soil carried by ancient waterways supported rice cultivation, trade networks, and village communities long before modern borders existed. Dynasties rose and disappeared, capitals changed, and political systems transformed. Yet the connection between people and the land remained remarkably stable. Human civilization became like a quiet layer of memory, resting gently upon the endless movement of nature. From the perspective of geological time, human achievements rise and disappear like temporary patterns formed upon the surface of a river. The Dong Son culture, the ancient villages, and later Vietnamese kingdoms all existed within this larger natural rhythm. Cities, capitals, and political systems changed through centuries, yet the rivers continued carrying fertile soil across the delta, allowing communities to rebuild and preserve their traditions through every transformation. Authority has always taken many forms throughout history. Some societies placed power inside royal palaces and golden crowns, while the Lac Viet developed a different balance through village cooperation and shared responsibilities. Whether centralized or distributed, every human system eventually returns to the natural cycles that created it. What remains longest is not the symbol of power, but the relationship between people, their environment, and the values passed from one generation to another. The grand fortresses, official documents, and royal inscriptions created by ancient rulers slowly disappear beneath the patient movement of time. Wooden structures decay, stone markers weather, and political boundaries are forgotten as forests and rivers reclaim the landscape. Yet the fertile soil, flowing waterways, and agricultural traditions of the Delta continued as human life. The enduring strength of this region has always been connected to adaptation rather than domination. As night settles over the flooded fields and quiet bamboo groves, a deep peacefulness spreads across the ancient landscape. The stilt houses along the riverbank become silhouettes beneath the dark sky, while a soft breeze moves through the tall reeds. The sound of the wind blends with the gentle movement of water, creating a natural melody that has accompanied generations of farmers, fishermen, and villagers living beside these timeless rivers. The river continues its slow journey toward the sea, carrying countless memories hidden within its currents. It carries stories of ancient settlements, bronze craftsmen, farmers tending rice fields, and families gathering around warm hearths. Every wave and ripple holds traces of human experiences that have passed through the delta. The water does not hurry, yet it never stops, moving quietly through centuries while preserving the invisible connection between past and present. Now allow your eyes to slowly close as the peaceful rhythm of the river fills your imagination. Picture yourself resting inside a small wooden canoe drifting along a calm stream beneath a sky filled with countless stars. The dark water reflects the moonlight like a smooth mirror, while the surrounding landscape becomes completely silent. There are no unfinished tasks, no distant worries, and no need to chase tomorrow. The ancient waterways surrounding the Lac Viet world once connected villages, carried goods, and brought people together through trade and shared traditions. Tonight, that same river becomes a symbol of rest and renewal. The gentle movement of the canoe follows the natural rhythm that shaped this civilization for thousands of years, reminding you that peace often comes from moving with life rather than struggling against every current. The cool night air surrounds you like a soft blanket, slowly releasing the tension carried throughout the day. Each breath becomes calmer and deeper as the quiet landscape embraces your thoughts. The distant sounds of insects, flowing water, and whispering leaves create a deeply peaceful atmosphere, resembling the quiet nights once experienced by countless generations living beside ancient rivers. The Lac Viet people discovered that true survival did not always depend on conquest, military strength, or absolute control over others. Their endurance came from patience, cooperation, and a deep understanding of the natural world surrounding them. Villages flourished because people followed the changing rhythms of rivers, floods, seasons, and harvest cycles. As you drift quietly beneath the endless stars, imagine this ancient wisdom flowing beside you, bringing a feeling of balance, safety, and peaceful connection with the landscape that has supported generations. The wooden canoe glides slowly across the quiet river, following currents that have flowed for thousands of years. These waters once carried bronze drums, woven goods, and messages between Lac Viet villages. Tonight, the gentle movement carries away your worries, while the peaceful darkness surrounds you, like the protective embrace of ancient forests and timeless rivers. Above you, the stars continue shining over the delta, just as they did thousands of years ago. Empires have risen and fallen, generations have passed, and countless stories have disappeared into history. Yet the sky, the rivers, and the earth remain. Their quiet presence reminds you that everything changes, but moments of peace can always be found within the timeless flow of nature. The ancient river gently holds your imagination as the canoe drifts deeper into the quiet night. Your body becomes lighter, your thoughts become slower, and your mind gradually releases every remaining burden. Like generations of people who trusted the river's rhythm, you allow yourself to rest completely, knowing that the natural world continues moving calmly around you. As sleep approaches, the final sounds of the river become softer and softer. The distant reeds whisper beneath the night breeze, the water moves gently beneath the canoe, and the stars continue watching over the peaceful delta. You drift into a deep and restful sleep, carried by the timeless river that has witnessed thousands of years of human stories and continues flowing quietly toward eternity. The script comes to a close. Thank you all for listening.